The Sportscast, June 25th, 2021. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, twitch.tv, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And if you're if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review. It will help us out tremendously. Also visit our website, thesportscast.net, and you can download our app, The Sportscast. Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks have shocked the NBA world when they beat the Bucks 116-113 the other night on Game 1. Quite surprising in Milwaukee. And today we have a special guest, an Atlanta Hawks fan, AC, who runs Hawks Fan TV on YouTube and also on Twitter. Welcome to the Sportscast.
Hey, Santiago. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
AC, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with the Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a diehard Hawks fan practically my whole life, born and raised here. Didn't start really becoming a fan of the game until I was right around in middle school. So kind of the early, mid-2000s when I was really starting to appreciate the game. My favorite player back then was Jason Terry. And then shortly after that, it became Joe Johnson and that era of Hawks basketball. And ever since then, just become a diehard fan. And it's really great finally seeing this team getting the respect and the recognition that it deserves. We've been lacking these past few years, going through a rebuild, and people saying that we are rushing the rebuild, this and that nonsense. But it's about time that the world sees the superstar that is Trae Young.
That was like the main topic of this show is Trae Young. This guy has been surprising everyone. Yes, the first round, they beat the Knicks. You can say that was pretty much a doable situation then. But then things got serious when they beat the Sixers. AC, did you see this coming?
You know what? It's crazy because I actually posted this on the Hawks Fan TV Twitter last week. I made a Reddit post 220 days ago now approximately, and I literally predicted this exact thing. I said I was one off by saying that the Hawks would be a top 4 seed, which we should have been, but the Knicks had the tiebreaker, so we ended up as the 5th seed. I predicted that we would make the Eastern Conference Finals, and I listed 3 main reasons basically. The first one being Trae Young, the supporting cast, the depth that we had. So, it's crazy to say, but I've been on record posting that we would make it this far. I will say this though, Game 7 in Philadelphia, I had my doubts. I was nervous. I was still confident, but if I had to have bet that game, I probably would have taken the Sixers in 7. On the road, being such a young team, but Game 7 taught me I'm never doubting Trae Young and the Hawks ever again.
Now, would this be an argument that if Embiid was fully healthy, things would be different now?
No, absolutely not. We still had the best player on the court at all times. The Sixers fans, they want to say that, Joel was injured, he was playing on half a knee. That's nonsense. He was good enough and healthy enough to drop, 40 points a couple of games. I think Joel is full of theatrics and he's soft, and he probably was wincing and grimacing a little more than he had to just to put on a show. But no, we had the best player on the court at all times, regardless of Joel's health. I think Trae proved that. And we also had the best just overall talent. Ben Simmons is, as we saw, got exposed, and he's nothing more than a role player. Tobias Harris, moment too big for him. We had John Collins, my boy Red Velvet, showing up. So not only did we have the best player in the series, but we had just the overall better talent, in my opinion.
Which you guys are causing Simmons to get traded out of Philadelphia. How you feel about that?
It's great. It's great. I made an episode on our YouTube channel before, right after the series, and I've been on record multiple times in years past, just basically, clowning Ben Simmons. And there was even a Twitter argument a couple months ago saying, who would you rather start a franchise with, Ben Simmons or Trae? And hopefully no one even puts them two in the same sentence, the same stratosphere universe ever again. Trae Young is obviously a number 1 option. Ben Simmons is, maybe your 4th or 5th best player on a championship championship team at best. But yeah, it's a great thing. I'm sure Sixers fans are going to be thanking us for finally opening up their eyes and realizing that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid just do not play well together. And not only did we get Ben Simmons traded, but yeah, we also exposed Julius Randle in the first round. So, these Hawks, we're just exposing everyone this postseason, and it's been great so far.
Really surprisingly, okay, Trae Young, drafted back in 2018 from Oklahoma. What were your expectations back then when you guys drafted him? Did you see, okay, this guy could definitely be the next Steph Curry for the Hawks? Like, what were your thoughts back then?
Yeah, coming into draft night, I had some mixed emotions. Once it was all said and done, we drafted him. I was all on board. He didn't lead the nation in college basketball in points and assists, by accident, right? He was the first college player in D1 history to lead the league in both points and assists. So obviously the potential was there, the skill was there. It was just a matter of how much of his game could he translate that into NBA speed. And obviously a lot of people would have said, making that trade for Luka or against Luka was arguably the worst trade of all time. But people are now seeing that, not only is it a fair trade, but some people are even starting to say that the Hawks won the trade. Personally, I'm taking Trae Young over Luka just because I think he affects the game more. But to answer your question, Santiago, I was a believer in him since day one. If you look back at my old tweets from 2018, I was a big Trae Young fan. I knew he was never going to be the Steph Curry because that's just not his game. He can obviously shoot from 30, 35 feet out, but if you really watched his game, you knew he was a playmaker through and through ever since high school. So, I like to say he's a mixture of Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, with Steve Nash and, Isaiah Thomas. That's really what he is. But ultimately, he's just Trae Young. He's not any of those guys. He's Trae Young, and, he's damn good.
Yeah, when I was asking that question to another sportscast contributor, he was kind of silent for like 5 seconds. He couldn't really put. I mean, because my question is, who would you compare him to, like a current player or someone historically? And he was like saying, Lillard, Curry, but it felt like he was individual. He was his own style. I mean, which is something very good.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at his whole entire game, he has. From an offensive standpoint, he is the complete package, right? He's got the shooting range, the shooting ability like a Steph Curry, like a Damian Lillard. He has that in-between, floater mid-range game like a Tony Parker-esque floater. He's got the mid-range game. He can facilitate and pass. I've said it before. I think, in this league, there's probably only one other passer that's even comparable to Trae, and that's, Jokic. But aside from him, I still think Trae Young is the best passer just from a pure vision and, passing ability standpoint. So it's crazy when you factor in his passing ability, his playmaking, along with his scoring, and Rashad Phillips, who's a big Hawks fan and writer, he labels him as a 4-level scorer, right? So not only is there's the paint, the mid-range, the three-point line, but then there's that extra layer, that 35 and feet beyond, and only a few players can shoot from there, and that is Trae Young, Damian Lillard, and Steph Curry. So, what we're witnessing is something truly unique, because Steph Curry and Damian Lillard, they're great in their own rights, but they don't have the playmaking and the passing ability like Trae. And then if you do have that good of a passer like Steve Nash or other great point guards in the past, you don't have the scoring. So this is the first time where we've seen a truly generational player that's elite at both passing and scoring and shooting and everything you want in a point guard.
This could be the most important player the Hawks has ever had since Dikembe Mutombo or Joe Johnson, but that's debatable, isn't it?
It is up for debate. Obviously, Trae Young's only in his third year. I mean, the kid is only 22, and he's already making, a name for himself, not only in Atlanta sports history, but just, in the league already. It's funny because I even went, I made a post a couple months ago saying, if Trae Young does this, is he already one of the greatest Hawks of all time? And then, some people said it was, blasphemous and disrespectful, comparing him to Dominique and, like you said, Dikembe. And I'm a big Joe Johnson fan. He was literally like my favorite player when he played for us. But he didn't have that swag. He didn't have that killer instinct And, he had all the great skills and physical tool set, but he just didn't have the swagger on the court. And then when you look at someone like Trae, he's just the biggest superstar that the Hawks have had since Dominique Wilkins. And I think when it's all said and done, no disrespect, Nick, if you're listening, but, he's going to ultimately become, probably the most iconic Hawks player of all time.
Definitely. And let's go see what happened this past Wednesday night. I didn't see this coming. I don't think AC saw it, but of course we'll ask him. Atlanta defeated Milwaukee in Milwaukee, 116-113. The Hawks were down by 20-something points. Trae Young scored 48 points, something that I've never – I mean, yeah, it's a lot of points, but it is something that I've never seen a huge comeback. Winning Game 1. AC, what was your thoughts and observations over that game?
Yeah, Game 1 was a wild roller coaster. You might be getting some games mixed up because in Game 1 on Wednesday night, it was relatively a close battle. I think the biggest lead discrepancy was maybe 6 or 7 points from either team. So throughout the entire game, it was pretty close, neck and neck. I said this on the Game 1 preview on my channel a few hours before the game started, and I said the key to Game 1 and the series is going to be, keeping it a close race. If the Hawks can just keep it within arm's distance going into the fourth quarter, I really like our chances. And, here's why. 2 words, Trae Young, Santiago. He's the best closer. He's the best player left in the playoffs remaining, right? Some might say, Devin Booker or Paul George or whatever, Giannis. I think Trae Young is the best player remaining, especially now that Kawhi Leonard's hurt. So when you have a player like Trae who's got that killer instinct, that killer mindset, with a coach that believes in this team, I think they're mentally tougher than the Bucks. I'm very well familiar with Coach Bud of the Bucks because he was our former coach for a few years. So I know that he's notorious for not making in-game adjustments that he needs to, and it came to bit them in the butt, Game 1. So hopefully that pattern and characteristic continues for the rest of the series, and he continues to play Brook Lopez as the 5, and Trae Young's just going to continue to eat. But yeah, I knew if it was a close game going to the fourth, we had a really good shot, and we proved it once again. We did the same thing in Game 7 against the Sixers, kept it close all game, and then once again it comes down to the fourth quarter. You have the best closer in the game, and it's wraps.
Foreshadowing what's going to happen this series, AC. I would like to know what you predicted before Game 1 and what you think right now. What are the Hawks' chances?
Before the series, I said Hawks in 7, and after Game 1, it might be a little, I might be a prisoner of the moment here, but I'm going Hawks in 5 now.
Wow. Why do you say that?
Yeah. I just think that from an offensive standpoint, they just have no answers to stop Trae Young. I think we have the better coach in Nate McMillan versus Coach Bud. And overall talent, I think the Hawks have the better overall talent. We have more depth. We got Danilo Gallinari, Lou Williams coming off the bench, and aside from Giannis and Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. I'm sorry, he had an outer body experience Game 1, right? He's never ever going to score 33 points in a playoff game, let alone the Eastern Conference Final. So I'm not worried about Drew on the offensive end. They're really relying on 2 key main players, and especially if one of those players can only finish at the rim and he has no perimeter shot, much like Ben Simmons, then you really only have to focus and key on Chris Middleton, and Chris Middleton is just not that guy. So with all that being said, I think the Hawks have too many weapons. They're just mentally tougher, and right now, there's something in the water in Atlanta, and Coach McMillan has gotten into the souls of all these Hawks players, and they're operating and processing things at a completely different level, and they're dangerous. They're Hawks in 5.
Let's look at the other players in the roster. Of course, Trae Young is still in the show, but let's look at John Connor, John Collins, and Kevin Huerter and Capella. Tell us about these other players in this team and the impact they're helping for the Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. It brings a tear to my eye, Santiago, because it's about time that these other co-stars start to get recognition by the national media. Before the playoffs even started, if you asked anyone outside of Atlanta, name two or three other players than Trae Young on the Hawks, they probably couldn't name them. Now, I'm pretty sure that they can name a few. Let's start with John Collins. John Collins been with this team. This is going into his fourth year now. He's been here since day one of the rebuild. He was actually the first player that our new GM, drafted in that kind of new era. Travis Schlenk, stretch four. A lot of people consider him just as a athletic big that can just go up and get dunks and get alley oops, which is very evident in the games that you've seen this playoffs. But as you can see, he's got a 3-point game. He's got a nice, clean, smooth-looking mid-range jumper, and he's a solid player. Obviously he's going in the end of his rookie deal this year. He denied that $90 million contract going into this offseason, and he betted on himself. And I'm confidently saying that he's probably going to get the max deal that he's going to ask for, and he's deserved it. Clint Capella, obviously, he's been great with the Rockets in those James Harden era teams. When we traded for him last year, I was a big fan. I thought this is one of the best moves the Hawks have made in probably the last 5-6 years. Very underappreciated because James Harden stole the show over there on that Rockets team, but this is your classic big, go up, get your rebounds, defend the paint, and he's literally the perfect center to match and mesh with this current Hawks team because we're all predicated around three-point shooting. You need that one defensive anchor. I think he got snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he could have been at least, runner-up or a top 3 Defensive Player of the Year and make at least an all-NBA defensive team, which he didn't, but that's okay because the Hawks don't get no respect, right? We're like Rodney Dangerfield. We get no respect, but that's soon going to change. And, Clint's been great. He obviously had a bad series last game against, Joel Embiid and the Sixers. When you go up against the best center in the league, you're going to be quite limited. But I like our chances against Brook Lopez or whoever it is. Obviously, it looks like he was actually guarding Giannis in Game 1, so we'll probably see that for the remainder of the series. And I like that matchup a lot. And then my boy Red Velvet, Kevin Huerter, we like to call him K-Von here in Atlanta, K''VON. That's his name when he's balling out like that. And, he's had games. He's had lots of games where he scored, 25, 30 points throughout his career. It's just the confidence with Kevin Huerter. He's got all the tools. He's a 6'7" wing, kind of plays that 2-3 position, can stroke it outside from the 3. But the underrated part of his game is that mid-range, putting the ball on the floor, playmaking for his team, and that was evident in Game 7 of the Sixers. 27 points in that Game 7, put on an absolute legendary performance, just bullying Seth Curry all in that paint and mid-range area. So we got some players, and we're not even fully healthy yet. That's the crazy part. If DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, and Bogdan Bogdanovic were 100%, they would be my pick for the favorite to win the NBA title. But unfortunately, we're down some wings, and we're making it do what we got with us right now.
Now, obviously, you're saying things are looking good with this Bucks series. As of right now, to play Game 2 tonight, who do you want to play against in the West, Suns or the Clippers?
If Kawhi's hurt, I would much rather face the Clippers without Kawhi. Now, if Kawhi does somehow get healthy and he plays in the finals, then I would rather pick the Suns because, in my opinion, Kawhi Leonard's the only player that's better than Trae Young remaining in the playoffs. So the Clippers are a good team, but they're just down their best player, which is unfortunate. I'd rather play a Kawhi-less Clippers, but if not, then I'll take the Suns. I'm confident in either team, if we play either team, honestly.
What do you think is going to happen between the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers? Series is 2-1 with Phoenix, but what do you think is going to happen?
Honestly, I still think the Suns are going to win. I think the Suns are going to pull out that series, especially if Kawhi doesn't come back anytime soon. They're deep, man. The Suns are deep, 1 through 8. They have some ball players over there, led by obviously Chris Paul and Devin Booker. So you have that backcourt, which is deadly. And I think it's just too much talent compared to the Clippers if they don't have Kawhi. So my guess is Suns in 6. I think Clippers can win one more. But ultimately I think it's Suns in 6 if Kawhi doesn't come back.
I would have to say, AC, that whatever happens in this playoffs, I think the two players that stand out the most is Booker and Young. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's funny because they've kind of followed the same narrative throughout their careers, right? They were both on pretty bad teams early on in their careers, and they both had that label of empty stats player. They just put up big stats on their teams, but they lose, so it doesn't really matter. And now here you have both players in their first year ever in the playoffs, and they're just balling out, doing exactly what they were doing in the regular season. So it's a beautiful sight to see. I'm actually a Devin Booker fan. If I'm not rooting for my Hawks, I like players like Devin Booker and players like that. So it's great to see that they're finally getting the recognition that they deserve. But that was maybe a little bit more expected from Devin, just because he's a little bit older than Trae. He's bigger, but what Trae is doing, I mean, I think people were calling him a fringe all-star, right? Maybe he's an all-star, maybe he's not, and now you have most of the mainstream medium calling him a superstar. So I don't think we've ever seen a player make that giant of a leap in one single postseason run. Like what we're witnessing is historic right now. It's amazing.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it does have a sense similar to the Heat, what they did last season in the bubble, a little bit. But I like this Atlanta team better because they're young and they got a lot ahead of them. I mean, of course, yes, you got Butler, but he was like 29. Now he's 30, 31. So things a little bit. It's a whole different dynamic. Now with this Hawks team, AC, do you see this team, become like a Warriors team that will last for 5-6 years and they'll be, contenders?
Yeah, 100%. There's not a doubt in my mind that we're gonna make that leap. Like I said, when you have Trae Young at the helm and you have all these great young pieces, and once we get our other star players healthy, like DeAndre Hunter, who's arguably our second best player and our best perimeter defender, he was out the entire Sixers series and we still won. Like we're missing some key guys. Along with that, we have a lot of assets and a general manager that's just brilliant. He actually came from the Warriors team that built that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson Warriors team. He was the assistant general manager. We poached him. He's now building kind of that same model and formula down here in Atlanta. So, and as you can see, you see some similarities. You have a dynamic point guard, really great outside shooting, and we have a very young team. Like you said, our best players right now are all 23, 24 or younger. So, yeah, I mean, I think these Hawks are really going to put the city of Atlanta on the map here and for the rest of the league. I think the league is slowly starting to realize how good this Hawks team is. And I think for the next decade, and for as long as Trae Young stays in Atlanta, I think this team has big aspirations. And I could see, a birth of a dynasty coming soon, especially if we win this year. Then I think it's going to be a Lakers-esque run, a Chicago Bulls-esque run, Warriors-type run here in Atlanta. So get ready. The show is just starting, Santiago, and there's plenty of seasons of what you're seeing now. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
I know the excitement, the energy, and what AC was telling me. Getting that DNA from the Warriors, and maybe that DNA came from the Bulls as well. You just see it coming into Atlanta, and Atlanta's not known as a basketball city. It's you always hear teams from like the Falcons and even like the soccer team, Atlanta FC, and you can say the Bulldogs, even though they don't play in Atlanta, they play in Athens, but it kind of spills over to Atlanta as well. So, are we gonna see a championship from the NBA? I mean, with the Hawks and beating out like the other sports?
Yeah, I mean, as winning cures all, right? And now that we've been going on this crazy playoff run, I've been a Hawks fan for almost 2 decades now, and I'm out wearing my Hawks jerseys out and about these past couple of weeks, and I just hear people saying "Go Hawks!" People are coming up to me talking about the Hawks and this and that, which in years past, even when we had that great 60-win team from 2015, when the Hawks got the number 1 seed, we had 60 wins in the regular season. We make it all the way to the conference finals, and then we get swept by LeBron James and that Cavs team. Even that year, when we were arguably one of the top, 3-4 teams in the league all season, the buzz and the excitement just wasn't the same with what you see now in Atlanta. Like every single restaurant, every single bar around the metro Atlanta area is playing the game. People are roaming the streets. We have watch parties all over the city when we're not playing a home game. I mean, this town is slowly shifting to become an NBA town, especially if we win. And yeah, like you said, we've been known as a Braves and Atlanta Falcons
I forget the
town,
Braves.
just because they've been better than the Hawks over the last decade or so. So if we win the title this year, expect to see a lot more bandwagon Hawks fans, not only locally here in Atlanta, but fans just from all over the world and the U.S. just becoming Hawks fans out of nowhere. And we have the reason why the excitement has just been so crazy is in years past when we've had those great teams with Joe Johnson, Dikembe Mutombo, Al Horford, Paul Millsap. They were good players, all-star level players, but we didn't have a superstar ever. The Hawks have never had a superstar since Dominique in the 80s. And now that we finally have that it guy, that go-to, Mamba mentality superstar at the end of the day, fourth quarter, who are you going to put the ball in the hands? And we have that player in Trae Young, and that's a type of player that the city can get behind just because we've been missing it for so long. And I think that's why we're starting to see so many more Hawks fans, Trae Young fans. It's great. It's been great.
Oh man, the excitement's there. I feel it from AC. I'm glad you're on the show because now I could translate. It's like, is it me or am I really excited? No, everyone's excited in Atlanta. Even though the Bucks series is still going on, which of these two teams will become a rival for Atlanta? Will it be the Knicks or the Sixers?
Oh man, just that storyline that we had in round one against the Knicks and the whole Madison Square Garden, Trae shushing them, him getting spit on. I mean, it's a good storyline. That's where kind of his villain persona was really created, right, in that round one against the Knicks. And as we know, the mainstream media, they love the Knicks. New York's a big market, so it would make for a good, fun rivalry over the next, 8 to 10 years. I just don't think the Knicks are that good, and they don't. There's nothing to really be too excited about if you're a Knicks fan. I'm sorry, guys, but their best player, Julius Randle, who's already 27, I think, he's clearly not the number one guy. You're gonna need to pull in an actual, true superstar and surround him with surrounding pieces, and they just don't.
AC, you there? I think we lost AC. Might be a reception issue. AC was talking about, I asked him about if it was going to be the Knicks or the Sixers be a rivalry. And he says it's most likely, it could be the Knicks, but the Knicks are, they're not all there yet. Even though they seem like they were there, but according to AC, they're not. Yeah, it's okay. So, yeah, you were saying that the Knicks, they're just not all there. You don't think all the pieces are there.
Yeah, the pieces aren't there. They're just not on the same level as our Hawks. I mean, it honestly should have been a sweep. If the Knicks can get some other good players, then that would be exciting. Two good teams going at it year over year, but I just don't see it. The 76ers rivalry versus Hawks, I think, can be a good one. I'd rather see the Sixers versus the Hawks rivalry just because, yeah, they're a better team than the Knicks, and it would make for a lot more competitive, fun rivalry. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's either way. It's both pretty exciting. Atlanta, New York. That was an exciting series. I never had that momentum since like the late '90s when Knicks were having issues with the Bulls and the Heat. So I could definitely hopefully see it again next season. But we'll see how things pan out for both clubs. Anything else before we head into predictions?
No, that's the main thing. I think I got a lot off my chest there. I think finally the Hawks are getting the respect that we deserve, and Trae Young and the rest of these young Hawks are finally being put on notice, right? I think this is just the birth of an early dynasty that we're witnessing, and I can't wait to see what we have in store for the future.
And the future continues tonight. Game 2, AC, Atlanta at Milwaukee. What's going to happen?
We're blowing them out, Santiago. We are blowing them out, running them out of their own home court. All the pressure's on Milwaukee right now. They're down 0-1. They know that they have to tie the series up before going back to Atlanta. this goes back to my original point. I think they're soft mentally. I think Giannis is soft. They don't have that alpha male on the Bucks. So I think Trae Young and the Hawks are going to make the necessary adjustments, and we're going to blow them out. I'm predicting the Hawks at least win by 9 or 10 points tonight.
Interesting. Going 2-0 to Atlanta feels pretty good. Phoenix at the Clippers, Game 4. What's going to happen there?
I think Game 4, I think the Suns take it. I think they go up 3-1, and, hopefully they can come back to Phoenix and close it out. But I'm taking the Suns in Game 4 tomorrow night.
You think Chris Paul slowed them down for Game 3?
Yeah, you know what? That's an interesting question. Obviously, it looks like the chemistry was a little off, given his absence these past few games. But Chris Paul is such a great player. It's almost I can't wrap my head around the fact that throwing a player as good as Chris Paul is going to somehow make a team worse. So I think they're going to find their groove back in Game 5, or Game 4, which is why I say they're going to win. It just took that one game just to kind of get Chris Paul back in the swing of things. But yeah, it looked a little choppy at times, but I think they have a big bounce back game and take Game 4 tomorrow.
And Kawhi and the Clippers are hanging on without Kawhi, so it's quite interesting how the whole dynamic and Paul George stepping up to the plate. But you know something, this playoffs has been very exciting. Now that it's wide open with no LeBron James or Steph Curry, so things are a little bit interesting. Hopefully, hey, maybe Trae Young will be the ratings guy for the NBA moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I mean, we've seen these ratings. People were saying, all these big market teams are out in the conference finals, but we've seen that the Bucks and Hawks series at least have pulled in massive ratings just in Game 1. I looked at the stats. It was an average of 5.3 million viewers. It was the number one watched program on Monday night. So that sounds pretty good to me, Santiago. I don't know, and I think because a lot of the demographic for NBA now is geared towards that younger generation. A lot of middle school, high school, college kids are watching the NBA more so than ever. And when you have players like a Trae Young, Devin Booker, and all these exciting young players, they're going to lean towards more of them, right? Like my generation, we grew up on like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, those types of players, Kevin Durant. And now we have this new era of, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Devin Booker, all these guys now that are grooming the next generation. And, this is the face of the NBA. Like you're witnessing now. I think if the Hawks and Suns play in the finals, that would make for an all-time, that would just be a great, great series. You have two of the best young players in the NBA going at it toe-to-toe. And I can guarantee you those ratings are going to be box office. Like people want to see Devin Booker and Trae Young in the finals.
That would be something unpredictable. Maybe not even Adam Silver would have thought of that. Jason Kidd to the Mavericks. What do you think about that?
It's a funny hire. I mean, I wouldn't have agreed with that hire personally, just because we saw what he did when he was the head coach with the Bucks and how he just couldn't do anything with the Bucks. I'm pretty sure he was the Nets coach maybe for a season. He got fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, everywhere he's gone, it's basically been a failure. And not every great player translates into a great coach. And I think Jason Kidd it might be one of those players that just don't end up being a good coach. But who knows? He has ties with the Mavericks. Obviously, won a ring with them. So maybe that plays differently in his mind, and he can maybe somehow coach this team up differently than what he's done in his previous two teams. But yeah, it's interesting. That whole Mavericks front office with the firing of the GM and then Rick Carlisle leaving, it's all just one big cluster. And I think you can kind of lean towards, look at Luka for what's going on right now. But hey, that's a discussion for another day.
For another podcast. But there's definitely one good player that has transitioned well to a coach, and that's Nate McMillan.
Oh, absolutely. Nate Dogg, as we like to call him here in Atlanta. I said this on my video I posted this morning. Once the season's over, once we've won the NBA Finals, he needs to step in the owner's office in this offseason, just bring a blank check with him and just write whatever he wants because he deserves it. I'm happy for him. A lot of Hawks fans and national pundits were saying that, he's been a failure as a head coach in the postseason. He's always been a first-round exit, this and that. And now here we are just 3 wins away from an NBA Finals. I would be happy for the Hawks winning, but I would be equally as happy for Nate McMillan, the job that he's done coming in midway into the season. Had to take over a team that he wasn't expecting to take over, and then now we have on the verge of an NBA Finals appearance. So he's done a magnificent job. I hope we lock him down for the foreseeable future, and clearly the players love him. Trae Young is a big fan of Nate, and I hope he signs a long-term contract with us, and good things will happen.
I'm sure he will with all the stuff he has done so far. AC, what is the best way to reach you online and also get access to your videos?
Yeah, so you can follow us at HawksFan TV on both Twitter and Instagram. Same with our YouTube channel, HawksFan TV. We post weekly videos every single week with pregame and postgame analysis, all the news, rumors, and debates that your heart's desire for all things Atlanta Hawks. And we also do live streams, every game as well, and take live caller reactions. So follow us on Twitter. We're most active on that at HawksFan TV. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. And go Hawks! Hawks in 5.
Absolutely. And you can reach us at the Sportscast, thesportscast.net, or on Twitter, the Sportscast1. We'll be definitely following what's going on in the NBA playoffs, and of course this weekend with the Euros. So looking forward to it. But anyways, AC, you've been awesome, man. I love your energy. I can feel it from Atlanta to Milwaukee all the way to here in Florida. Really excited for you coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast, and hopefully I can join a couple more shows in the future.
Absolutely. Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks, baby. Have a good one.